So welcome to the Scottish Property Podcast, Scotland's most handsome auctioneer, John Morris.
And a TV celebrity as well.
He is. I feel a wee bit. Yeah, he's got us under pressure, isn't he? John's a regular
under pressure.
Holmes under the hammer. So we're trying to up our game here by bringing him to the G4 podcast studio in Wishaw to make him feel like a real celebrity.
You'll be used to all these lights and cameras, mate.
That's it, it's just my bedroom usually.
Do not know, I know about the tripod, mate. So tell the listeners, a bit about your background, because you're an investor at heart, and it's not just property. You like whiskies and watches and property.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about your background.
Well, I studied property development and valuation at university. So
there's a course for that.
There is a course, believe it or not. So when I was leaving school, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. My dad's a property lawyer, and he's like, trust me. He's like, go do property. That's what you'll be good at. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. So I studied at Edinburgh Napier. So moved away to Edinburgh, studied it, which the term study is hilarious, because I think I had like 3 times I had to go in to university a week. And then one of the courses, and I remember it always, my lecturer, Alison Andrews, she was amazing. She was actually fantastic. It was like, how do you value a property? She's like, so you phone one of your mates who works at another surveying firm and you say, you valued that house at X. What did somebody offer on it? Because this was before home reports and everything like that. So somebody would offer on a house, then the surveyor would go out and they'd be like, okay, that's £100,000. And then you would go out and value it. So you phone someone else. So I was like, so you're telling me that I'm studying to do a job that all I have to do is phone people and ask them how much things cost? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, this is amazing. I can do that all day.
What do you do as property investors?
Exactly. So I think I qualified from university about 2011, which is probably not the best time to be coming out of university wanting a property job. So the steer was to go in and be a surveyor. So go in, get Rick's chartership and then be a surveyor. But I was going into jobs and they were like, we've just laid off X amount of people. It's like, you can come in, work as an intern, you'll get paid nothing for a year, then we'll take you on and you'll get 16 grand on the basis that you go up to 18 after a couple of years, and then you go up to 24. And I was like,
I went to fucking university for 4 years.
Correct. I mean, I had grand aspirations of, we earn 50 grand a year straight out of university.
Well, you're not trying to be a doctor here, mate.
but it's property. That's the thing. When you think about property, you think people wealth, people have a lot of money doing all these things.
How did you get on at university, Stephen?
I lasted 6 months.
I didn't even get in.
Did you? We've never had this conversation before.
Back to your right.
So came out and effectively I worked in a restaurant and put up marquees and rode rickshaws, all while doing an internship for an auction house, because I couldn't get a job doing surveying effectively. So I just worked 1 day a week working for an auction house, did that for a year, and then eventually they were like, do you want a job? And I was like, oh no, I just like working here 1 day a week for free. And they were like, are you joking? I was like, of course I'm joking, like hire me right now. So worked there for going on 11 years, and then set up my own company last year, which was.
And you worked your way up in the corporate.
So literally started as a sales executive, just answering phone calls, doing general admin. Then opened up the Edinburgh office from there, and then took over running all of the offices from it. So it was really a baptism of fire. It was kind of like, oh yeah, can you do this? Yes, I can. It's one of those things, if you ever get asked to do something you don't think you can do it,
just say yes.
Just say yes.
And figure out the fuck.
Figure it out. Figure it out. And especially, I mean, in property, it's all about having your knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the better it is. So that's just a time thing. The more deals you do, ultimately you know that, okay, that property will sell for this, that property will sell for this. That's the rental. Okay, maybe it should be a little bit higher. So it's just building up your own Rolodex in your head of what's actually going to sell, what something should be worth. Okay, that maybe doesn't need as big a refurb to get a tenant in it and stuff like that. So when did that click for you then for investments, or something you've always been interested in? It's something I've always been interested in. I mean, from when I was younger, going in summers, washing cars just to get some money to then go buy things. And it was always like the entrepreneurial spirit of, like, okay, you need to have money to do things. And there was, through uni, it was always like, I want to have money. I don't want to be broke the whole time. So it was like, how do you have money? You start looking at people with money. They've got property, they've got stocks and shares, like, and all that. So it's then with people who are invest, they've got nice cars, they've got nice watches. Why do they invest in all these things? And then from there, it kind of branches out. So
what was the first asset class you went into then?
Cash, if you can call it an asset class.
Would you call it an asset class?
I think an ISA. I think stocks and shares ISA was the first one I delved into. Right. So it was just something that you could buy in regularly. It was like, okay, I know that I'm supposed to invest. I don't have a lot to invest, but if I just put 50 quid a month, when I didn't have any money, it was like 50 quid a month, and just do that. It's like taxed myself, and I just did that.
What age were you when you were doing that then?
I think I started when I was 20.
Right.
So 20. So this is the thing. Last year of university, my dad would give me an allowance, and then I would work doing my rickshaws and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I've got all my play money, but I'm gonna put this away. And it was actually one of my flatmates at uni. So he worked all the time while doing full-time course, and that's what he did. He was like, okay, I've got my rent money and I've got my play money, but he would actually tax himself at the start of the month. He was like, I get paid and then I put this away. And I was like, why'd you do that? And his dad was a very successful investor himself, and he was like, oh, my dad always said this, compounded interest. And I was like, oh. So then it was like, you start making a little bit of money, and I was like, okay, I'll increase that. I'll increase that. And then
it's quite a good lesson to learn early on, isn't it?
Well, this is it. I couldn't. I mean, it was a great thing to know, because if you don't know what you don't know. So if somebody tells you something, you go, okay, that's it. But the whole idea of, I mean, property itself is a great way to build wealth, but I don't see it as a fast track way to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you need to, obviously, you want to be trading your time effectively to make money, and then whatever you make, you need to keep that money. So by keeping it, you invest it in things that are going to bring you either you can sell fairly liquid. That's why I like watches, because if you buy a watch, ultimately, if you need to sell it, you can find a buyer for a watch like in a day, really. And 9 out of 10 times, depending on the watch, you can either sell it for a profit or at least sell it for the same value. Opposed to if you buy into stocks and shares, they're up and down.
Yeah.
So if you've bought in at the peak of the market and then you need to sell it for whatever reason and it's taking a dip, then you're like, oh shit, I've just lost 20%, but I need that money. So
I think about that quite a lot, you know, when I see on Instagram these rooms full of young, it's usually males, you know, in their early 20s, and they're doing the property courses and all that, and you know, they think they're going to get into property just to make loads of money. You know, they must be quite disappointed when they realise that their flat, the average kind of buy to let property is probably netting about £200 to £300 a month. Do you know what I mean? They think they're going to live off that. So,
and this is the thing, and it's also, I mean, deal sourcing is a great way to trade and make good capital, but it's hard to find a deal. As we all know, it's like a good deal, it's easy to sell, but it's the ones that are the middle of the road. Okay, it's an average one you would probably have in your portfolio at the start of your venture into property, but the experienced investors don't want them anymore. So those are the kind of deals that tend to kick about off market with the deal sourcers. So I mean, I've always dealt with deal sources insofar as I like people who are interested in the same thing as me, and deal sources tend to know they've gone and they've met somebody and they're like, oh, I've got a mate that's selling a property but they can't sell it, and I'm like, well, I can help do that, and then we pay referral fees to do so. It's like, you don't have a network. It's like, fair enough, you've got 10 people that might buy a property, but they want it for 20 grand less than the person's going to accept.
And you've got one for 10 grand.
Exactly.
Likes it, yeah.
So it's one of those things, it's like, if you market the property with an investment specialist, which is what I see auction almost as, it's not so much the dilapidated stock that everybody sees it as. It's more a trading platform for investors who want to sell their investment properties to another investor, because you don't want to have the people wasting your time with, oh, I want to get it subject to mortgage or subject to roof report, subject to my granny like in the back garden, like whatever it is. It's like, no, an investor goes, right, I can buy it for 100 grand. I know the rent's going to be £800 a month. There's already a sitting tenant in it. Okay, who's the letting agent? Okay, can I speak to the letting agent? Go speak to them. Oh, everything's paid and up to date. Fair go. Okay, do you want to make an offer, yes or no? Because that's the price. Oh, well, I don't know if I'll get a mortgage. Well, you can go get your mortgage in principle. Why wouldn't you get a mortgage? Oh, what about this, what about that? Well, speak to your mortgage advisor. That's the most important thing. Whereas with an estate agent, you might get somebody who's non-committal and they want to invest in property, but maybe they don't actually have enough money to put down but they know, and then they can tell them, I put an offer in a property, but I fell through. Fell through. Oh, it just fell through at the last minute. Why did it fall through? Because you don't have any money.
Yeah, there's no. That's the thing. There's an easy entry point into offering an estate agent. You're getting no criteria. They're not putting any barriers in your way. They're just.
I was told
offer.
I don't need any money to be buying property,
which is hilarious. It's like you don't need any of your own money. You borrow money from somebody else. You still need
someone's money.
Going back to your, we kind of fast forwarded there because like going back to your kind of early days out, you know, your work for the auction company. Who was it you worked for?
Future.
Right, in Edinburgh was it? And you kind of...
So I started in Glasgow, and then they opened up their Edinburgh office, which I opened up.
So you spent a bit of time there.
Yeah.
What did you kind of get from that? I mean, obviously you run your own business now. What did that give you in those early days? You know, what did you learn? Was that good? You know, we see so many people come to us on Instagram saying, how can I get involved in property? How can I get involved in property? You know, they just want to fast track to be the property investor. But... you know, getting yourself actually a job in the sector, first of all, I always believe, and Stephen has talked about it before as well, I think it's really valuable.
As I say, I worked there for a year, just as an intern,
right?
Just going around and then being around and in the company. A lot of, that was back in the day when you did like live auctions. So evening auctions, go around and speaking to investors, why did you buy that? And just like having general chats with people, which was really good. I mean, ultimately, it's a sales job. I mean, that's what you either have it or you don't, I think, when it comes to sales, because it's conversations. I mean, you can get somebody who's socially awkward, can't, or scared of the phone. It's like, can you phone that person? Oh, what happens? It's like, what happens if what? If they tell you they don't want to buy it, then they don't want to buy it. What's the big deal? So I was very, I mean, I'll talk to anybody, and my wife hates it. She'll be like, we go away on holiday, and she's like, can we please just not meet some new people today? And I'm already like, oh, but I met Davey.
Before you know, you're doing a deal with him.
Exactly. She's like, it's like, oh no, this. It's like, oh, he's into whiskey as well, and he likes his watches. She's like, so am I going to see you at all this holiday? I was like, well, me and Davey are going to go try some nice whiskies, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But I think it's important to get experience in whatever you want to do, and get in front of the people that you want to. That are in the same sector, and just learn that way. I mean, time is the best thing to learn. So,
and that's the thing. See, if it's not like an amazing salary, then I think it's just the actual experience and the connections that you'll make. Well, later on, that'll last you well.
It's like doing your first flip. If you want to do your first flip, people want to go, oh, but I saw on Instagram Stephen Clark made 40, 50 grand for his first flip. You don't need to make 50 grand. Make 10 grand, make 8 grand. Fucking just go and get the experience.
You either earn or you learn. So it's, if you're not earning good money, you need to be learning a lot.
Yeah.
And if you're not learning anything, because you've kind of plateaued, you better be earning a good salary, because at which point that kind of covers it. At which point, okay, I'm earning good money. How do then you can go on a course and learn more with the money you're earning, or you use that money to invest to make you more money.
They used to have a bad reputation, future they probably still do, to be fair. I remember having that conversation with you a few years ago, talking about, and you were like, yeah, we just need to try and change Future's perception of it, because it was the way they marketed, obviously talking about a selling point of view. And I remember your fucking was just a brilliant, the comeback on it was, you know, there's a property for sale here, and I gave you an example, and it was like how creatively the sales marketing on an auction site, and then you just threw it right back at me and goes, oh, what, a property investor not doing their own due diligence on a property they're buying? Like, fucking, that's their job. And I thought, do you know what, it's fucking spot on. People bitch and moan about auction houses and go, oh, but it's not false information. They're painting the truth in a better light. Of course it's their job to sell that property.
But this is the thing. I mean, I think auctions do get a negative, or people view auctions very negatively, but it's one of those things that people will go to auction because they want the property sold, and they want it sold as quickly and for the best possible price as possible. So it's one of those things. It's putting a property on the market and showing, okay, this is on a good street. There's sales evidence to do so. This property needs renovated. So that's why you, as an investor, that's where you can add the value. If you can find a property in a good location that's maybe needing a full refurb, you want to buy that property on the basis it's on a good street, because then you can then drive up the value.
But then, like on your point there, I mean, you do get a lot of people that are serious investors that do have cash to spend, that are put off by buying from auction, because there is this negative perception of, oh, I'm worried I'm going to get ripped off, or I know such and such, or, you know, that didn't, they didn't get the solicitor to read the legal pack and all the rest of it. And I went on the Google reviews and they've been totally slated and I couldn't get my deposit back and all the rest of it. I mean, obviously, with risk comes reward. But,
it's probably a good question for John, actually, to maybe even... Let's get him to explain it for the listeners, like maybe like the process of auction from a seller's point of view and a buyer's point of view, and like what the process is, and it might make people more comfortable about entering into an auction from a buyer or a seller.
The thing is, if you're a seller at auction, I mean, what you're getting is the terms and conditions that come with an auction sale. Fair enough, you might have to take a little bit of discount in the price of the home reports, 100,000. The general sale price is about 10 to 15% below, depending on the property. I mean, I have sold properties for 20% over home report value. I mean, we just sold one last week in Bridgeton, had the home report value of 50, and we sold it for 62.
Can you sell mine for over 20% over asking price?
I will try my best. I will try my best. So, I mean, the terms are obviously, once a buyer comes in, they're paying a 10% deposit plus fees, and their completion is 28 days or 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whichever's agreed. Because if you're bidding in the actual live auction, it's 28 days. That's the standard contract. Some clients will put in 14 days, whatever it is. So if you turn around and say, John, I want to sell this property, can we put a 14-day completion in? Of course you can.
But if a buyer comes to you and says, right, I'm interested in this property, I want to offer on it before auction, I can't complete in 28 days, you're just going to go back to the seller and say, they're going to complete in 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Is that okay with you? Yeah, that's
exactly it. And that's why it's very important for when you're selling a property for a client that you do get all the information. So the contracts from the solicitor, the title deeds, and the home report. So then you can provide all that to the prospective buyers. And it's like anything in business. It's like dealing with other people. You're constantly waiting. Okay, I'm waiting on that person. Give me that. That person's waiting on that person. Giving you that. So sometimes it's like as auction
chasing
there's somebody chasing somebody who's chasing somebody who's chasing somebody, but at auction somebody wants the property sold yesterday 9 out of 10 times. So it's like, okay, we can put it on the market, and it's like, well, can we get the legal pack? We're still waiting that from the solicitor. And then you phone the seller, and the seller's like, oh, I haven't actually spoke to my solicitor yet. It's like, can you do that? Because they're not going to give you the information.
So what's the benefits of selling, as from a seller's point of view, selling at auction as opposed to selling with an estate agent?
The main thing, as I say, is the majority of the people that are selling are investors. So it's the security that you get from the deposit being paid by the buyer.
It's a serious buyer.
It's actually a serious buyer. You're not getting the tire kickers, and they've actually, I mean, they've got money invested at that point. So if they don't complete, then you've had your time wasted, but you get the deposit out of that. So I mean, I think I previously sold a property for your brother, and that happened. It was like, somebody bought it, they couldn't get a mortgage. We gave them enough time to get the mortgage.
Every time I sell a property, you John, I want the fucking buyer to pull it. I'm like, just go and pull it, because you're giving away a 10% discount to get the property sold by a sitting tenant or whatever the issue may be. But you know, if they put a 10% deposit and then pull out, well, you've got the 10% back, and if you sell it at 10% discount, you still got your market value from it. And I think that's where people or property professionals won't realise that there's an opportunity to sell at auction that gives you that bit of guarantee, that bit of...
And that's the thing, it really is, it's finding people that actually want to buy the property. And you obviously, estate agents deal with deal sources. Oh yeah, I'll make you an offer of this, and then so they'll offer on that property. I've got a property for £100,000. Now I'm going to scurry around and try and find an investor who wants to buy this property for £100,000 and charge a fee. Whereas if I'm dealing with a deal sourcer,
you know it's a deal sourcer.
Yeah. Well, I'm also going, well, if you want to buy this, you have to pay a deposit. Well, it's not actually me, it's going to be buying it. Well, do you know who's buying it yet? Well, I'll find them. Go find them first. Because that's the thing. I mean, I could, as I said, I could go and offer on a property at Retty's or any other high street estate agent and say, okay, I want this, but it's subject to me getting a mortgage and a roof report. And I know I want to sell that because it's maybe one of my investors might want to buy that. And then at which point the investor doesn't want to buy it. So I'm going, okay, I'll find another investor. And you just, as a deal source, will kick that up the park until eventually they go, oh, I can't buy it.
And the seller in the meantime is getting pissed about for months.
Because as a estate agent, it's like I've spoke to the offering party. He's just waiting on this coming through. He's just waiting on that coming through.
You're finding 99.9% of estate agents don't know what a deal sourcer is. So they'll take that on face value that someone's came in. Yeah, I'm a cash buyer. Gave it all the fucking chat. Went in and made an offer on the property. The property gets taken off the market or it gets under offer, and then they piss about for months and months and mess the seller about. But I like at auction, most auctioneers that you speak to actually understand the property investment industry, so they know that are you a deal sourcer or is this a buyer for you? Oh well, if the person's up front me and say I'm a deal sourcer, you can work with them they still get the same result for the seller.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I know as a buyer as well, you're getting that security of, okay, so it's not part of a chain. So it's like you buy it and then it's like, okay, I'm paying a deposit, I've got to complete on this day. So it's the same thing. So at least you've got the guaranteed sale, opposed to if you make an offer and it's somebody living in there and you know you want to do it up and then put it on the buy-to-let market, but that person, the house they're moving into, that falls out of bed. Then so it's usually chain free at auction, so it's kind of it's tit for tat. It's like I'm putting down this money, and you've got it for a good deal 9 out of 10 times. So you're getting that discount. So you've already built in a little bit of equity to your initial purchase, but you've got to complete within the 28 days, 6 weeks, whatever it is. So it's
what you finding the reasons then that people are coming to you to sell in auction? So obviously,
because I'm the most handsome auctioneer now. That's the main reason.
As you stated at the start. Well, if you're not into,
there's no question that.
if you're not into big, tall, bearded guys, then what other reasons would you come to yourself?
The main reason is, I mean, I am an investor and I'm looking at the property as, okay, well, what is it that we need to get this sold to somebody else who's actually going to want to buy it? Especially over the last 2 years. So people have bought properties for maybe £80,000 and the rent was £600 a month. So the yield on that's what, say 8%, 9%, something like that. So it's a good return. Those properties that were worth £80,000 are now worth 120, but the rent's gone up to 625 a month. So as an investor, obviously you're going, but it's worth 125. It's like, okay, well, kick the tenant out, sell it vacant. As a house, it's worth 125. But you need to understand as an investor, if you were buying this property right now,
you ain't paying that money for
would you pay 125 grand for this house on the basis it's got a tenant in at 625? No, exactly. So then at which point it's the cash-rich investors are going to get the better deals because they know, well, actually I can buy that property that's worth a little bit more
for a bit of discount on it.
For the bit of discount, and I'll just keep that equity in there. Because obviously, I mean, wealth is in properties made from buying maybe more expensive properties and then compounding at a higher rate than buying the lower value properties.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is it usually like, you know, there's people are usually in a financial position where they need to exit quite quickly.
You can direct this question to me, but I've just listed 2 properties with John for complete.
well, there you go. Like,
so yeah, one was one of the second or third last properties in my personal name, sitting tenant in place. We've obviously got the eviction ban, the rent freeze. It's just one that doesn't suit my portfolio right now, and I'm like, right, it's time to get rid of it. So that's completely an auction buy as well. And the other one's in a limited company that I've sold one, or John sold one last year for me, and there's one more remaining property in that limited company. The quicker I get rid of that property, that company gets closed down. It's accountancy fees. So yeah, there's reasons to that make sense. That couldn't be on the open market.
The perception of people selling at auction is always, oh no, it's
something
there's
wrong.
Something wrong with
something wrong with the property.
But I mean, that's why. I mean, I go and speak to people that have got property, and I go, it's not that. If you're selling a property, you've got a figure that you want for it. So that's a reserve price. There you go. So I know a reserve price to sell a property at. Therefore, when I'm speaking to someone, oh, I've only got 80 grand. Well, the reserve's higher than that. I'll maybe give you 90. The reserve's higher than that. And it's like, it's a game you play. Whereas if you're speaking to an estate agent and you want to buy something, oh, well, what do they want? They want as much as they can get. And that's the thing. It's like, how many times have you spoke to an estate agent? Well, what's the client actually wanting here? I mean, I'm an investor. I want to buy this property and I'm going to do this. Estate agents don't care, do they? It's like they want as much as they want for it, which is great. That's why you use an estate agent when you're selling a house.
Yeah. They'll see it through their lens. It's their profession, but
exactly,
we're in a completely different profession.
And I think 9 out of 10 times it's just somebody that's got a tenanted property that knows they want to sell it to an investor. Because if you go on a stage and I've got a tenanted property, they go, kick the tenant out.
We can now.
You can't kick the tenant out.
So are you noticing that as a huge influx of properties coming onto the auction sites right now as tenanted properties? Is that?
I mean, I've always really dealt with tenanted properties anyway, because I like buying tenanted properties and I like selling them because it's instant cash flow, and it's like, okay, you as a standard you get a little bit of discount from it. So if you're buying property and you're wanting to hold it for the long term, then it's like, okay, you know that it's going to go up in value over the piece, and you've got that instant cash flow. I mean, I've got a property on our books at the moment. The tenant's been in there since 2011. Like, that's their home. Like, they ain't ever leaving. They've got 3 kids. The rent could be a little bit higher, but again, it was always one of those things that
is that affecting the price right now that you're getting? You're getting at auction, because obviously, like, kind of chatting with Mark Channer before on the market update, you've got a rent cap where you can't put the rent up. Which traditionally,
rents have fallen behind so much. So when I'm looking at auction tenanted properties,
it's a fucking 6%
I'm looking
yield,
at
right?
it and I'm like, whoa, that rent is really far behind. What do I do there to get that working again as a good investment?
It's probably long term.
This is where you or us as investors think you've got to put your thinking cap on. It's like, think a little bit outside the box. How can I do that? So do you buy a property that you've got somebody in there, and then you try and buy a vacant property? It's like, okay, we can move them out into this one, and it's like, we'll do you the rate of this, but we want to do a refurb on that property, and then you can put that property back out at the higher rent. I mean, it's one of those, they can turn around and say, we don't want to move.
Yeah. Just it's a risk on that.
And that's the thing.
I'm thinking about one of the ones I've just listed with you. Like, I mean, it's probably 50 quid, 75 quid, 100 quid below market value rent, but that stacks up at a shit yield. So, like you say, the home report's higher. Prepared to give away a discount on it to get rid of it because it suits my criteria. If I'm releasing 40, 50 grand cash in my own name to put in a limited company where the mortgage rate's going to go up and I'm only going to now cash flow 150 quid rather than 400 quid a month, then that's a change in my circumstance to sell it on. But the person that's buying it needs to think a little bit outside the box and go, well, okay, that rent roll, if I was using it for a yield, it's not that great. How do I increase that? How do I get that up to market value rent?
And it is one of those things, looking at a property, it's like, okay, well, the rent is undervalued at the moment. How long will it take me to get it back up to market rent? At which point I've bought it for a discount because it is low rent.
That's your pain point, isn't it? As an investor,
exactly.
buying
like,
that.
I think as a lot of people, I mean, the BRRRs, and it's like, I want to buy this at under market value. Give me that, and it's like, well,
you fucking work for that.
Exactly. Buying. I mean, I am not a big fan of BRRs because it's time, like, of actually having to deal with builders and finding the deal and all that stuff. I'd rather buy a turnkey investment that I know yields well, and I just forget about it. Give the keys to a letting agent. I mean, if I'm buying a property, I buy it off the numbers. I mean, I use Dyer & Co. So Sam is a friend, and he manages a lot of my... and so he manages a lot of my properties, and I bought one, and he phoned me up. He went and did the inspection, and he was like, you haven't been in that property, have you? And I was like, oh my God, why? What's wrong with it? And he was like, it's actually quite good. And I was like, why would you phone me to tell me that? And he was like, I just know you don't go into them, so I think it's funny to wind you up. I was like, you're a bastard.
You'll do the same as folk that buy, a property from you that don't read the legal pack, but you'll be the same.
Well, this is the thing. I think it's.
Tell me about. I know what you're saying there about, obviously, people. There's a lot of perception out there that a lot of properties in the auctions are fucked, or there's like subsidence or issues with the buildings, and you've touched on there, it's not always the case. The properties might be sound. It might be a case of the seller's basically just in a position where he needs to offload. But tell me, if you get a property that you do know it's knackered and it's got subsidence and it's fallen down, there's big cracks, and there's going to be a substantial cost, or there's something hidden in the legal pack that maybe the seller's told you about, that
it's not hidden in the legal pack. If it's in the legal pack, it's there.
Excuse me. It's in the legal pack, right? When you're doing the viewing and you get, a kind of like young couple that are clearly just, I mean, you'll sense this because you deal with a lot of people, and you can tell straight away if people are kind of new to it. And they go in there, they're like, I'm really excited, going to get our first investment. They've really sort of saved up to buy their first property and all the rest of it. And they say they want to buy that. Is there a moral discomfort there when they put in that offer, or they get that offer accepted, and you don't really know if they've done all their due diligence as the agent, as the auctioneer?
Well, if it's at the auction, and it's one of those things, you vet everyone that's bidding on the auction. Have you definitely read the legal pack? I mean, that's why the documents are there and up front. It's for somebody to do their own due diligence. So at which point, your job as an auctioneer is to sell the property.
Get the best price.
So at which point, if someone turns around and they've not read the legal pack and there's a bill on it, it's not it's not ideal, and it's unfortunate when it happens, because it does happen. People just bid on, I've got a great deal, and they've not instructed a solicitor on the basis that they've thought I'll save £500, £1,000 not having a solicitor read over the legal pack. I also can't give, if it's something's in the legal pack, I can't give legal advice. They have.
What I'm saying is, like, you're at the start of, you've not been going that long running your own business and all that. Obviously, you want to build up a good reputation, so. Obviously, you're doing viewings and stuff like that, and the people are asking questions. How much do you divulge?
This is the thing. If you know there's a statutory notice on the building, you have to disclose that. Right. But getting the actual exact figure out of the factor is damn near impossible. And sometimes the sellers will be very blasé about it. But as long as you know,
it's just not your job either, obviously.
But that's an auction.
If you've got it and you say, well, there's an outstanding notice on this building. I mean, that's part of the description.
The auctioneers, they're effectively the client of the seller, not the buyer. It's the buyer's perspective to do their due diligence, instruct a lawyer, have the right knowledge and experience to ask the right questions. I mean, I'm assuming what Nick's maybe asking is, if you're in the property and there's a bit of damp or something, and they say, is there any damp? It's not your job to go and say, there is a bit of damp in that corner there, go and check it out or get investigated. You're not there.
That's the thing as well, with the majority of properties, they've got home reports on them. There you go.
You put on the slits of surveyor.
What, like, you've bought auction and all the rest of it. Like, what, if somebody's buying at auction, right, you're not going to potentially getting a solicitor involved to read the legal pack on every single property.
So I've got a business partner like Sam Dyer. He's a pervert that loves reading fucking legal packs at night.
If somebody's starting out, do you pay a solicitor if you're seriously going to bid on that? That could be quite a wasted expense. Not wasted, but costly.
There's a conversation had. It's like, and that's like what. You want to qualify the buyer, because I will ask. I mean,
have you bought before?
Have you bought before? Have you got cash? Is this your first investment? And I've told clients before, look, I don't think this one is for you, given the issues with it, because it's one of those things. If you've got a full refurb and it's going to be your first investment, that could be your last investment, because you're like, oh my God, we didn't know where to start. We took down the wall, and then it was like there's just one thing after another. That's quite refreshing to hear,
because there is other companies out there that won't go to that kind of won't have that discussion, and that's what I was kind of getting at.
I get what you mean. I suppose the point to listeners is, don't buy at auction for your first freaking property, or it could be a turnkey. It's probably not. You're probably generalising that, but like you say, if something's a flipping complete. Charter needs a whole lot of work as a BRR.
Speak to your solicitor, and get them to speak to the auctioneer, because I mean, I'll speak to solicitors and they know all the questions to ask. Then we can give them the details of it. I mean, I just sold a portfolio in Perth, and that's the person that bought that, he instructed as a solicitor, and it wasn't even a registered title, so it was old Sazine's title, and I just liaised directly with the solicitor because this person didn't know the questions to ask. His solicitor did, and then I had the conversations with him and explained it. And it's one of those things that, this is the thing, I don't want to be an auctioneer who's just going to sell any old shit to anybody. It's like you want to be selling investments for good investments and getting people that are actually, they're aware of the issues, and that's why they're buying it at that price. Sometimes they're going to pay too much though, because it's an auction, you get carried away, there's not somebody else who wants to bid, and then you pay a little bit more than maybe you should have, but that's an auction.
Have you had sellers come to you that have known fine well there's an issue with the property, and they just get you to sell it without telling you?
So again, that comes down to the questions that I ask. I always, like, when setting up Prime, I mean, that's the thing, it's like, it's a reputation thing, and we want to do the best for our sellers and for the buyers ultimately. So I haven't had an experience of somebody going, no, there's nothing wrong with the property, and I'm like, well, looks like it's about to fall over.
That's what I was saying.
It's like, it's just a little bit leaky. I'm like, there's no roof on this property. But not at the moment.
No, that is interesting, and I suppose starting the business, you want to have reoccurring sellers and reoccurring buyers, of
course. So where are you at now? Obviously, because there's a lot of auction companies out. Well, not a lot, but there's quite a few in Scotland. So how do you feel that you differ to the rest? Why would
Well, I mean, the main thing is it's me and my business partner Lewis, and we're both investors, so we know what things are worth. And this is the thing: there's what is it worth and what somebody will pay for it are two
different things.
Two completely different things. So it's like, okay, I mean, we had a client who I feel sorry for the builder on this one, because she a burst pipe, and then so it ruined the entire flat, and then she was like, oh, I just need to sell it. Oh no, this is terrible. And she accepted an offer for £50,000, a verbal offer from the plumber. He's like, I'll buy it off you. And she was like, oh no, can you come out? And I was like, look, I will get you over £80,000 for this property, no problem. She's like, are you sure? I was like, I guarantee it. And she's like, oh, and then somebody else offered her 65, and I was like, look, I will sell this for more money. I promise you, it's not going to be an issue. And we put it on the market, sold it in a day. And she was like, oh, I can't believe you did that. I was going to sell it for £50,000. So again, it's one of those things that as an investor, you would want to be buying that at the 50 grand, yippee, I've just won a watch. Yeah. But for the client, like, she would have sold it anywhere between that. And we've got effectively over 30 grand more than she was willing to accept. So it's getting good results for clients like that.
Do you offer them an option where you guys will buy the property as well, or does everything go?
I mean, so it's one of those things that if someone was like, I want to sell this immediately, it's okay. Well, we could buy it, but we would recommend selling it. And to be honest, it's one of those things that I would always recommend having the property sold at the auction, because it's one of those you get a better result for it.
Price.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But then some sellers' circumstances might be different, where they just need to sell it within a couple of days. Somebody that's there, they spoke to, cash quickly. Yeah.
I like keep it arm's length. Yeah. And it's like, if you're coming to me to have it sold at auction, I'll sell it at auction for you. I mean, I buy from other agents. So as I say, I want a turnkey's turnkey investments. I mean, I've got some HMOs. I like student rentals. That's kind of my bag. So if somebody came to me and was like, I've got a student rental in the West End of Glasgow, and I want it sold, and I want this price, and I'd be like, okay, I'll buy it off you for this price. But as I say, the majority of times that people, when they're coming to sell it, the job is put it on the market, get it sold at auction for the client.
And with your own investing then, obviously you just touched on that, like, where are you at with building your own portfolio? Do you have a kind of goal in mind where you want to get to with that? And it's quite interesting speaking to you, because we don't speak to a lot of people who really diversify too much. A lot of people, like, well, I know myself, I put all my eggs in one basket with the property stuff, and now I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute here, I'm quite heavily exposed to all this government stuff and this, I need to start maybe looking into stocks and shares and all the rest of it. So what's your kind of long-term investing strategies and goals?
So I wanted to get to 100 properties that was like in my head. I was like, I want 100 properties. And then when I was employed, it was like, okay, well, how do you get to do that? Obviously, when you've got the portfolio, once you've got more, it builds quicker. But then it's like, actually, you want to be trading your time more effectively for money. So that's why I set up the business, because it was like, if I own the business, I can make more money, and with more money, I can then buy more property, and it happens quicker. The diversified thing is like, I've always liked to have little pots here and there, just for security more than anything else. I mean, everyone talks about it in the finance sector, it's like you want to have an emergency fund. So whether or not you've got some emergency fund in cash, some in a stocks and shares ISA, and then watches, whiskies, whatever it is. I mean, whiskey is a good investment class because it's free of capital gains tax. So if you've got £4,000 or £5,000, you can't buy a property with that. But what you can do is you can put that away for 3 years, and then that maybe turn into £7,000, £8,000, £9,000, £10,000. At which point, then you can put that towards. Yeah, you've got tax-free investment, and then you could potentially put that towards a buy-to-let while your buy-to-lets are ticking in the background. So it's investing is making your money move forward as effectively as possible. And if you've got lots of little pots here and there, that's good. But you want to have a big pot. I mean, that's the thing. If you're heavily invested in property, it's better, because if you're not touching actually the capital at all that's ticking in, you can buy a property, buy one every year, and then one every year turns to two every year, two every year turns to three every year, then three every year turns to one every month, and it's that rolling thing. So if you want to really focus in on it, then it's a great way.
Done any of the crypto then?
I did, yeah. Crypto was a bit of fun while it lasted. I actually managed to sell out, and it paid for my bathroom in my new house, which was good. So I've still got some exposure, because it's like I would rather have some money invested in crypto and it go to nothing than have nothing invested in it and it go to the moon, and then you go sat there like, I had £1,000 in Bitcoin, now it's at $1 billion. Like, oh god. So it's one of those, like, I'd rather be invested in it, but less than 1% of my portfolio. So.
I've just not been able to see past property for so long, and then it's now with the interest rates that have really made me think, do you know what I mean, and look at other options like stocks and shares and all the rest of it, and commercial property and stuff like that.
I suppose while inflation is still fucking really high, and even if rates are going up to 4 or 5% in a mortgage, inflation's still more than double. So it's still a great asset class to be involved in, and the fact there's cash on every month.
One of my flatmates at university, one of my groomsmen at my wedding, he's in finance, and he worked for a financial advisor. And I was talking to him. He's like, go speak to his old boss, and he basically just set me up. He's like, look, and it's a work backwards thing. So if you're like, and what do you want? It's like, when do you want to retire? All these things, and he set that out for me. So I actually started investing in my SIP and my ISA well before I bought my first property. I mean, I was obviously in the property game and I knew that was the goal, but I was like, okay, well, this is a long-term thing, and it's a backup plan of what happens if you can't get the property. It takes longer. It's like, again, it's just the slow, steady wealth generation that needs to happen. And then when you're 50, you're like, oh, all that years and years of just boring, putting it in is just, because it's like, once the first 100 is the most difficult, and then after that it's like, okay, if you're getting 10% on 100 grand every year, you get 10 grand for doing nothing.
I done a compound calculator on my SAS pension. It's set up a year ago, a bit ago. I'm looking for the transfer value. Done a compound calculator. I'm buying my commercial property I've got into my SAS and investing in the other, I think it was 100 grand. And I've done an 8 and a 10%. 10% reaches my SAS to the lifetime allowance for myself and my wife, the 1.1 million, whatever it is, within 17 years. By the time I turned 55, it's like already hits 2 million. I'm like, holy shit.
That's why you want to move out of this country. Get yourself to Dubai.
So when you say you obviously you were like, well, you haven't seen past property, but it sounds like you haven't seen past residential property.
Residential property. So I'm now looking at SAS and looking at commercial property because I don't have a pension, right? So now, like you, I sort of realised that property wasn't the way to make wealth, it was the way to build wealth. Get a business, get a trading business, which is my letting agency. You know, for you it's the auction company. Then that way I've started accumulating the profits within the business. That's now going into the SAS, and that'll buy commercial, just to diversify a little bit. And then there's all sorts of tax benefits.
Commercial property is great as well. I mean, the tax benefits, if you get you can get a TOGC, which is a transfer of going concern. So if you buy a VAT elected building, so actually you don't have to pay the VAT on the acquisition. So there's a lot of tax benefits, and they specifically geared it that way because they want people to
I mean, something like this where we're sitting here, you know, like you subdivide it into different units and sublet it to, you know, you could have a property hub where you've got the letting agent, the estate agent, the mortgage advisor, the tax, you know, under one roof.
That's it. All the like, we're in an office space, and that's all subdivided into different offices. I mean, that's the thing for that building. If you were to buy that as a residential, even like the equivalent of buying an HMO, then it's like if you buy that building and you've got 4, 5, 6 offices in it, it's like they'll pay probably a higher rate than a student will. And as you say, you don't have to pay the ADS on acquisition of commercial property, which is, I mean...
We should probably shout out Jerry Alexander for this idea, shouldn't we? Do you know what I mean? So where are you at in the terms of getting to your 100 properties then? How many are you at?
About 10%.
But the compound away started taking over.
This is exactly it. I mean, there's it's obviously taken a sidestep at the moment to start the business and generate more income from the business. But once
and that's what stalled me, by the way. Like, and you've been going, what, a year? Have you?
Yes, we opened in July.
Like, I've been going like 5 years, and it's really stalled me in terms of my own investing because I've just been so focused on
But that's the thing. If you build a business to a level that will come, because then you've got that asset in itself, and at which point then you can siphon off and put in to the buy-to-lets. Yeah, so it's just it's one of those, if you just focus solely on the buy-to-lets, but then you weren't focused on the letting agency, would you have enough money to invest in your buy-to-lets, Nick? So
in the work just now,
exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely, no, it's been a great chat. Thanks so much for joining us and coming on. Diversified chat.
Well, this is it. I mean, everybody is in property because they're investors at heart. And as you said, it's very easy to go down the rabbit hole and say property is the only thing that you can do. And it's not. It's all about using property effectively and then knowing that there other asset classes that you can go into. I mean, we didn't even touch on watches. I would love to talk about watches, because I mean, I think they're a great investment.
I like to talk about watches.
What is that watch, just to get it on camera here? Like, how much does that cost?
This is a Breitling. This is a Breitling. So I bought this for my 30th birthday.
What's that worth?
What's it worth?
What did you buy it for? There we go.
I think I paid. I think it was about $9,000 for this watch.
How much is it worth?
About $8,000. So this is the thing. But I was bought on 0% finance over 4 years. So at which point I wanted this watch, and that's one of those things. It's something that I've enjoyed it for that period of time. Fair enough, it's gone down a little bit of value, but I've enjoyed it for that time. It's like if you bought a car. I mean, I sold one of my watches effectively as an emergency fund to pay my mortgage when I went out self-employed, and I made 30% on that. So it's one of those things. It depends on what you buy, but I bought this specifically. I wanted it. I'm not going to sell it. So
brilliant. Where can people reach out to you, and how can you help people?
So Instagram is John Property Auctioneer, and if you're looking to sell a property, I mean, even if you just want to find out how much it's worth to sell, then primepropertyauctions.co.uk.
And any tips that you want on growing a good beard as well, get in touch with John.
You've got to look homeless for a while. Grow it until you look homeless, and then trim it back, and you'll look gorgeous, just like me.
Right, mate. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. Cheers.